Afternoon, everybody. My name's Todd Vasilou. I'm a cybersecurity advisor with the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency under the Department of Homeland Security. I'm out of San Antonio, Texas, but I'm responsible for South Texas in general, so down Corpus Christi, down to the valley, all points in between. And I provide resources, cybersecurity resources and services, and act as a liaison for other national level services from CISA as well. So pleasure to meet you all. Thanks for being here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Darcy Shaw, and I'm with Del Mar College's Cyber Center. We are located at the Center for Economic Development, and we are one of the many resource partners that are available through Del Mar College to provide assistance to business owners in the community. We're a brand new program, so I'm very excited to get to know everyone here and learn about your businesses and see how we can bring awareness, training, cybersecurity resources, system security plans, any kind of assistance at no cost for your business to assist you with cybersecurity.
Hi, my name is Holly Houghton. I'm the Deputy Director of Information Technology for the City of Corpus Christi. I'm born and raised here in Corpus Christi, been with the city for over 20 years, and I'm excited for this opportunity, so thank you for having us today.
Awesome, thank you. And I am Katie Galan. Once again, I'm the Director of Education and Community Engagement for Better Business Bureaus serving the heart of Texas. Before we kind of jump into some of those questions, I do want to just take a quick poll of the room, show of hands, who has been the victim or has had some sort of experience with a cybersecurity breach in any way. See, this is a lot of people in this room, which goes to a couple of points that I do want to just kind of read off really quick. Almost 350 million people were victimized by, through cybersecurity just last year, which equated to about $4.5 million lost. And so that is a 72% increase in 2023 from 2021. So that's a very substantial increase. And what's really important when we look at these numbers, what's really important to note is that the people that report is a very minuscule portion of what's actually going on. We have found, at least through Better Business Bureau, that only about 5% of people that are the victims of any sort of cybercrime or scams actually make the report. So when we see these numbers presented, the actual numbers are exponentially higher. And small business is a huge target for scammers in the cybersecurity realm. So extremely important for everybody here in this room today. And at this point, cybersecurity is not really an option. This is just something that we have to really get on board with in order to keep your business safe, to make sure that you are trusted in the marketplace. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into some of these questions for our esteemed panel. And I do want to start with Todd here. So what are external dependency management and asset management why are external dependency management and asset management important factors to cybersecurity resiliency?
Well, those are two of the domains, the cybersecurity domains we find most often within critical infrastructure that have some shortfalls. So when I'm talking about vendor management, or when you hear, not vendor management, but dependency management, we're talking vendor management. Most of us rely on some sort of third party or someone to provide us a service, whether it's, energy, right, telecom, applications, software, hardware, et cetera. And having SLAs and agreements and the assurance that those third-party vendors will have your back in the time of crisis, particularly during a cybersecurity event, is important. One big thing with that when you're talking about vendors is phishing with trust. We've all heard of phishing. There's all spear phishing, all kinds of phishing activities. But phishing with trust is a huge issue, and that's where these vendors are compromised. And then you get an email from your vendor that looks legitimate. Looks like you're communicating with Bob from your vendor that you always have communicated with, but it's not. They've been compromised, and now you're sending information to who knows who. So when we talk about dependency management, or third-party management. It's an important aspect of it, something you should focus on, and how you form those relationships, maintain those relationships, and sustain those relationships over time to make sure your resiliency is squared away. The second part of that we were talking about asset management. So that's another big issue where if you don't know what you have, how can you protect it? How can you be less vulnerable to an incident or an event, right? If you don't know what's in your network, rogue devices, old, legacy equipment and things of that nature. And we're not just talking about, the hardware aspect of it. We're talking about the people, right? Your personnel, because they are an asset. Your technology, which are your physical devices and things of that nature, whatever you need to perform your daily duties. Your technology, rather your information, which is your data. That's an asset you need to protect. And then your facilities, those are assets as well. So there's 4 different things you need to focus on, but that's something we stress here at CISA. I just want to kind of bring some awareness to the folks here. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Oh, are we? Hello? Oh, there we go. So I know you mentioned, our employees are, your employees as business owners. And I want to direct this to Holly. How should we protect our customer and employees' sensitive information? Because the employee aspect is also really important.
So one of the things you want to focus on is making sure you obtain as little information as possible. You don't need social security numbers. You don't need driver's license numbers for everything. You make sure you have, if you're taking purchases, you make sure you have it on a server that's called, PCI compliant, or your processor is PCI compliant. Don't share data through emails, or use encrypted email where necessary. We use a lot of file sharing servers. Make sure it's on an encrypted server. Use strong passwords. Don't use passwords that are like paraphrases, 16 characters or more. Don't allow less than 8 characters. Redundancy. Make sure that they're not allowed to use the same password more than once within 10 times or 5 times. Choose whatever best fits your need. Don't store passwords on a file folder within your drive. Make sure if you have to store them somewhere, make sure you use a software or an application or a tool that is very secure, highly protected. Don't if you need input or if you need advice on what to use, come see us. I think that's all I have. Yeah.
And that kind of takes me to another point. So a lot of you may rely on some third-party vendors or cloud services to help protect yourself in this whole cybersecurity realm. So what kind of steps, and I want to open this up to the entire panel, what kind of steps can these business owners take to ensure that they have that security with those third-party vendors?
Is this working? There it is. Yeah. So SLAs are a big part. Service level agreements are a great way to encourage that, but also having a vendor management plan. Okay, and I know that sounds kind of foreign right now, but this should be everyone in here. If you have a business, you're tied to the internet. You are cyber. Everything someone can access you, get to you through electronic means. So having a cybersecurity plan. And within that plan, having a lot of other plans, right? But then having that focus to have a vendor management plan where you strategize and you codify all the particular pieces of managing those relationships. And I know it's kind of harping on this a little bit, and it's a lot of documentation. We're talking about paperwork and everything like that. But at the end of the day, you want to be as close and have just as much access and availability to your vendors in time of crisis or deconfliction as you can possibly have. So the vendor management plan will have all those things in there. If you have more questions about that, if you'd like some more information about that, you can contact me. CISA has many different types of frameworks and templates there that we can provide.
Okay, so this question I want to direct to Darcy. So there is so much information out there. I think sometimes we may feel a little information overload. But this is all really, really important. Obviously, it's for the safety of your business. And there are, in addition to all of the information, there are also a lot of threats to the business. So where does a business owner begin to address cybersecurity within their business?
Thanks, Katie. Well, like Todd has mentioned, creating your plan, having an awareness of what you have and who's accessing that information is pretty much where you want to start. You want to know what kind of information you're collecting. You want to know what kind of devices you have, what systems you have, what points of access there are, and begin documenting those pieces. That's generally where I'd suggest somebody start. Just know what you have and document that. As far as being aware of threats, there are a lot of resources that can, you can receive messaging to let you know what's available out there. More importantly, as someone who's previously been an SBDC advisor, and I've worked with people with a lot of continuity planning for their business, more importantly is having a plan of what you're going to do when something happens, and knowing who you're going to contact, how you're going to report about it, and understanding who's affected by what kind of breach you might have had. So basically, I'm just going to bang the same drum that you've heard from the resource partners here. As a business owner, you're going to need to document what your processes are going to be. You're going to have that plan in place. And if you do it while you're thinking about it, even if you're capturing just pieces of it while you're thinking about it, that's going to help you down the road. It's always going to change. It's always going to be something you're updating. The more you can integrate it into your practices as a business owner, the more you can make routines about doing updates or changing your password or tracking any changes that happen with your systems, the more secure you're going to be, the less of a target you're going to be, and the more prepared you're going to be in the event of a breach or an attack.
Can I? So just to follow up on that, something the City of Corpus Christi has done is we have engaged all of our employees to let them know that they're all members of our cybersecurity team, no matter if they're a field worker that's filling potholes or working on a water line, up to executive leadership. Because, emails are very important, right? But that is the main, I guess that's that's one of our most vulnerable ways people are getting into our system. So we have headers on each email saying, please be aware that this is potential phishing email. We have a centralized email where they can report suspicious activity, and that has worked out really well. We've caught many invalid links. We've caught a lot of, we've I guess, been proactive in making sure that we're not exposing our network and our infrastructure to any kind of a cyber attack.
Awesome, thank you. I do want to go back to Todd on this one. What are some of the most common cybersecurity threats that you're seeing that are affecting U.S. critical infrastructure?
There's a lot out there, obviously. I mean, there's malware, numerous different strains and variants of malicious binary that are floating around. But one of the most, I shouldn't say recent, but I just had ransomware. There we go. It's been a long week, everybody. I apologize. Ransomware is one of the biggest problems that we're looking at right now, because it's something that it affects everybody, whether you're small business, small, medium, large business, whatever the case may be. Ransomware, you could be targeted. And the one scary thing, and the reason why I bring ransomware as one of the focal points here regarding threats is, it's become a business. There's ransomware as a service. You can go out there on the dark web. You can pay whatever it is in Bitcoin or some sort of non-attributable currency, and you can get access to technology, application software, things that you can help you become a person that's going to perform a ransomware attack. Okay, so we're making it easy. We're not making it, but it's becoming easier, and it's a way that a lot of folks around the world are making money. It's an easy way to do it. So ransomware is really one of those things that you should be cautious of. You should definitely educate yourself on that. Have ransomware insurance or have cybersecurity insurance, right? Have a plan, once again, of how to mitigate and handle ransomware. And most importantly, report it. If you are a subject or a victim of ransomware or some other sort of attack, we mentioned this earlier, report it. put that up the chain, get it out there, communicate it to your other folks in your vertical or within your sector, or to law enforcement or whoever your maybe a regulatory agency should be. But you want to report it because sharing is caring. The more folks, the more of us normal people out here know about what's going on, these bad folks are doing, we can do something about it, right? Because what's happening here could be happening somewhere else. We can cooperate those things.
Just to add on to that, there are some reporting requirements. There are some regulations that require you to report when there are breaches in Texas. We have some laws, and there are federal requirements. Not to scare people, and it can be an embarrassing situation. You're concerned about your reputation, letting people know that this thing happened. That's why, again, having a plan in place is going to help you address it more quickly, more thoroughly. You're going to maintain the trust that your customers and your vendors have in you, because as Katie pointed out, there's hardly anybody here who hasn't experienced some kind of phishing email, some kind of malware installed on your computer, some virus. It's about risk mitigation. It's about trying to reduce your risk as a business owner, raise the level of your security so that you're less accessible to those threat actors out there. And then when something bad happens, as everyone who's lived a life knows occasionally that does happen, you have a plan in place so you don't even, when you're in crisis mode, you know exactly where I need to go, what are the next steps I need to take. And often it does involve reporting to law enforcement, again, to help protect other people so that they're not experiencing the same thing.
Okay, so, and I want to open this one up to the entire panel too, whoever wants to take this one, but what are some common misconceptions that businesses have about cybersecurity, and how can those misconceptions be addressed?
I'll answer it from my point of view. In working with small business owners, a lot of times people think that you're too small, right? I don't have very much. Why is somebody going to come after me? Or you just have so much going on in managing your business, all the different hats that you're wearing, that this is a lot of information to take in. It's overwhelming. You might set it aside thinking, okay, I'm going to deal with that later when I have time to focus on it. And as I shared, the truth is that small business owners are a prime target for threat actors because you're so busy, because you're handling a lot of information. And even if they're getting a little tiny bit from you, even if they're taking a little bit of information or a little bit of money from you, they're making that. Or you may have an employee who decides that they're unhappy with you and they go hire someone to do ransomware. It's just not to scare everybody, but there are things that can happen in the same way that if you have a physical business, you're going to probably lock your doors when you leave for the night. You want to make sure you're just putting little barriers in between you and the possibility of those things happening.
So let's say I'm a small business owner. How do I, and maybe I'm a one-man show, but I still, we have to prioritize, as you're saying, cybersecurity. So how do I prioritize that as a small business owner with limited resources?
Well, baby steps, really putting things into play that are routine for you. The same way you're going to make sure you lock up your business at night, you set your security alarm, you do your nightly deposit. Those kind of routines that you have in place for the operations of your business, you just want to incorporate cybersecurity into that. And like Holly said, make sure you have your employees trained, that there's just a raised awareness, and that little by little you're implementing those practices. Just being here today, you are all ahead of the game.
Now, I know this is something actually that I speak to people about a lot through BBB, is doing those software updates that kind of pop up on our computer that I think a lot of us, as we're working on our laptops or our computers, you'll see software update needs to be done. And sometimes we don't want to quit what we're doing. We just kind of X out of that update. Those are pretty important, right? Because sometimes those have updates to your computer's security. So how often do we need to be performing upgrades? And should we be using anti-malware? I think we know the answer to that, but.
Yeah, you should be updating your software and firmware and doing patches as frequently as possible whenever they're due. You're going to get some sort of warning with that, or whatever the case. But that's one of the biggest things out there as well, is just unpatched systems. Things that aren't protected, that just have vulnerabilities spilling out from everywhere, and that the adversaries can easily pick up and then attack. So yeah, that's what I would say.
So we're talking about, we've mentioned malware, we've mentioned ransomware. How else has the landscape of cybersecurity changed in recent years, and what are really the most pressing concerns for folks like everybody who's here in this room today?
There's a lot more threats. I mean, we can start there, right? So you go back 20 years, and you were seeing some malware here and there, and all these other, we've always had this stuff, but it's getting more advanced. It's becoming more of a problem. The more interconnected we become, the more advanced people become. The easier AI makes it to code and to develop and do things like that. The smarter we're going to become, and it's just going to encourage the people on the other side of the fence to get smarter too. And they're going to develop those skills and come after those folks that they're trying to take advantage of.
So another trend that we are seeing, especially after COVID and everything that happened there with our workforce, is work from home. So are there different aspects to cybersecurity? How do we protect ourselves if we are working remote? If you have employees that are working remote, what's the best way to tackle that? Holly, you can take
I can
that.
start.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've done at the city is we issue laptops to everybody. We limit the access. We limit their ability to install drivers. We limit their ability to install applications, because we need to make sure that at the end of the day, they're not installing a driver that has ransomware or something associated that could infect your system, because then once it gets to their computer, it'll go to your network and your infrastructure, and then it becomes a bigger problem. So that's one of the biggest implementations we've done, but it doesn't matter if they're at home or if they're at work, we have the same requirements. Don't give them direct access to your network. Use some kind of third-party VPN service. VPN service. I think that's what, I don't know.
You're correct, right? Yeah, using VPN, a virtual private network, is what you want to do. You also want to incorporate multi-factor authentication. Passwords and usernames are great, but you want another form of authentication. You want to make it harder for folks to be able to guess your password or perform some sort of attack against you to get your password right. So yeah.
And I do want to add something to that. Unsolicited links. This is something we talk about all the time. So these are the links that are going to come to you through your email, through your social media. Looks like a great deal maybe for something that you're shopping for, things like that. And we all know that they know how to target us based on our shopping experiences. So sometimes those links can look really enticing. We tell everybody, whether that's coming through on your cell phone, on your laptop, whatever device it is that you're on, super, super crucially important to never, ever click on those links because we don't know what they entail, what's on the other end. And what we have found at BBB is that that's one of two things. It's either installing malware onto your device, which, as we all know, is basically swiping the stored information on your device, but also it could be redirecting you to a phishing website, phishing for your personally identifiable information. So never click on those links. So Darcy, what are some resources that are available for business owners?
Well, you have some right here, and you have a bunch of them here in the room. There are a lot of resources from CISA, from BBB. They have a scam tracker. SBA has some cybersecurity resources. There's a ton of information out there available for you. I would encourage you to go to government or nonprofit supporting those government sites, resources to get templates to create your plans. That's something that our Cyber Center exists to assist you in creating those security plans for your business, or begin documenting what do you have, what information are you collecting, what kind of regulations do you need to comply with. And hopefully you've all been to meet with the resource partners that we have here. It's a subject, I'm sure you have all been hearing the need for cybersecurity, that information out there. There are a ton of resources available. The Office of the Attorney General, the FBI, CISA's website. So you can access those resources all over the place. There are a number of for-profit companies that are also out there to assist you with those plans. So there's a glut of resources. Sometimes it's trying to figure out how to navigate it appropriately, and that's what some of these resource partners who are here can help you do.
And just to kind of follow up with that with regard to CISA, first of all, how many folks in this room have heard of CISA before? It's a relatively new organization, and you're probably like, who is this guy? Where does he work? Right, so I've only a few folks, right? So we were stood up in 2018, and we're essentially the nation's risk advisor, okay? We provide resources out for cybersecurity, for physical security, chemical security. I'm a cybersecurity guy, so I provide cybersecurity resources. Those resources include no cost assessments that are not, we don't audit you, we're not, it's not regulatory. So if you'd like to get a gist of where you sit on your threat landscape and your cybersecurity maturity, you can contact me and we can get together and I can go over some of those resources we have to give you a quick kind of bird's eye view of what you're looking at as far as your cybersecurity maturity and your resiliency. We also do workshops. We work with you and your employees to develop, stronger understanding of cybersecurity practices. We do tabletop exercises where we'll come out to your organization and run you through a complete cybersecurity incident so we can test your ability to respond to that. And then we also offer some national resources where we provide vulnerability scanning as well, another free service. So if you want another layer of protection on your network, on your external facing IP addresses, we can do vulnerability scanning for you as well and send you weekly reports of anything that might be in your network. So CISA is here to support. Like, once again, I'll reiterate, because a lot of people aren't aware of this, and it kind of boggles my mind sometimes. They ask, how much does it cost? And I'm like, it costs nothing. It's free, and we have a lot of services and resources for you.
Awesome, thank you. So we're talking a lot about who should not have access to our information. Who should, if anybody, have access to our protected data? And I'm going to send that to Holly.
Only the people responsible for analyzing that data, really, especially when it comes to payments. And even if you're taking payments, you don't need access to credit cards. That needs to be kept within your merchant processor. Your low-level employees don't need information or access to, configuring software applications. They don't need access to install hardware. They don't need access to install servers. So one of the things we found at the city was departments were going in, installing a server offsite at a location. Nobody knew anything about it. It wasn't being protected. So we actually took the time to centralize all of that. We audited all of our equipment, make sure, sorry, there was it. That's it. I lost my train of thought.
And I do want to thank Darcy for mentioning BBB Scam Tracker. I just want to expand on that. We've got about a minute before we get to Q&A. BBB Scam Tracker, you guys can access it on our website, bbb.org. It's a crowdsourced platform. It's free. It's a place where you can go and input all the information if you ever were or almost were the victim of a scam, or if you just want to see what's going on in your neighborhood, you can input by zip code even and see what people are reporting around you. And like I mentioned, only a little less than 5% are actually reporting. So the more information we can get out there, the more that we talk about it and make ourselves aware, that really is going to be our best method of defense. And also on Scam Tracker, we do compile regular reports that are sent to the Texas Attorney General's office as well as the Federal Trade Commission. And we do get called into investigations from time to time, and that's from the top down, from Homeland Security, FBI, all the way down to state officials and then down to local PD. So what we do is we utilize the information that was compiled in Scam Tracker, and that's what we are able to provide law enforcement so that they can, there goes the timer for my alarm, and that's what we can provide them so that they can go and take care of it on the law side of things. And that's also where we get all the information that decides what I'm gonna speak about when I go and give presentations and speak to groups. So it's really, really important. I encourage you guys to utilize it. And again, if you've not been the victim and you don't have information to put in there, at least go see what your neighbors are reporting and what's going on in our community. Very, very important. So with that, we want to get to any questions that anyone in the group may have. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so let me just repeat the question. So her question is, if you are a business owner, you're running a business, you've got somebody who, for example, is coming in to work on your AC, they end up getting access to your back room to try to manipulate the system. So what do we do in a situation like that?
So we actually have somebody escort them, and there's always somebody with them the whole time, the entirety that they're there.
And I want to add that having policies in place and training your employees so that they know if somebody's coming in and saying, oh, the owner told me to come and work on the AC. If you didn't know about that, you don't let anybody back behind because your employer has trained you to not provide access. And, also, ideally, your systems in the back are logged off and somebody can't easily access them.
Do we have any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Back in 2017, my email was hacked, and I was told by my computer guy that AOL and Yahoo were two of the worst email security companies to use. And at the time, the most secure was Gmail, which of course nothing is bulletproof. I was just wondering if that has changed at all.
Regarding the most secure email platforms. Yeah, and I really can't speak to that, but I can say that a lot of the ones you see out there are pretty reputable these days, and they've grown leaps and bounds over the last 20-something odd years to make sure that things are a lot more secure. It's going to happen. The adversary out there is going to find a way. It's going to happen. But they're all decent, and it's just it's a matter of just making sure you're using good judgment too within email, changing your passwords quite frequently, and just keeping things safe and not clicking on things you don't know. That's another important thing.
Any other? Yes, sir.
So the question is, you have a third-party vendor that manages your payments, right? And your third-party vendor if they get compromised? Right. Right, for your customer data that's on your website or that you're storing in that website, yes. I mean, you would be. I mean, if you legally own the website, right, and you have a business, there could be there's probably some more legalities there that I'm not going to be able to speak to because I just don't have that in front of me. But but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're responsible for your infrastructure, you're responsible for your customers, and you're responsible for that relationship with your vendor as well, right? To make sure they're not screwing things up or on their end. But just using due diligence and trying to stay as secure as possible. And I understand a lot of folks, you're not gonna have your own IT team. You're not gonna have a cybersecurity department. You're gonna have a third-party ISP provider or telecom provider that's gonna work with you. And that's how things work these days. But you still have to have that relationship with them. You have to have a plan of communication with them if there's an outage, right? And then speaking of your web, your web server, whoever you're using to manage that, right? To create that, you have to have the same kind of relationship with them as well, and make sure you have controls in place, right? So you're not able to just willy-nilly all over that web page, right? There's controls in place to prevent people from going to certain places, right? There's probably an employee access portal on there. Maybe there's a customer access portal, but yeah.
Anyone else? Yes. You want to take that, Darcy?
Well, I'll take a stab. I would say whatever device you're not using, generally speaking, log off and log out of it and shut it down. Because if you're not physically there with that device, you don't know who or what might be accessing it. So if you're using your email on your phone, use your email on your phone, log out off your desktop or your laptop or whatever other device you might have been accessing it through. That's the best practice. A lot of us, will leave, and again, not perfect, trust me. We'll leave devices open, we'll have logged on, and then we run off to, I'm gonna run to the grocery store and I'm gonna do something. I'll come back and I'll be, leave my browser open and everything's going on. In particular with your business environment, I would say you want to make sure that you're logging out of any devices that you're not using, that you don't have directly on your person, or that you're managing that.
Okay, and I think, yes, sir, we'll have time for this one question.
We're a whole bunch of small businesses, and we obviously do email with Gmail. We have providers like AWS or GoDaddy or whatnot for websites. So our infrastructure is typically in the hands of somebody else. I've got government agencies up here. I've got Triple B. Do we have a place where we can go do some intel work on whether I should be with GoDaddy as a server or do email with Gmail, Yahoo? Do you have a central place for us to do that kind of research in small business?
Right. So you're talking about vetting, right? So
Where we can not have to go through so many different agencies, but look and say, yeah, you're keeping an eye, and AWS is up to speed on cyber.
right. Right, and unfortunately, I can't give recommendations, but I can speak to kind of the track record of some of these organizations you're speaking of, right? And AWS is they're premier at work, right? They do a really good job. But yeah, vetting your third party dependencies is very important. In my old military days, when we were ordering something, we had to get three different different quotes, and evaluate those quotes, and also evaluate is that vendor going to meet our resiliency requirements or emission requirements. And then we would then kind of rack and stack those three. And that's a good methodology to follow today with who you're choosing for whatever you're doing, right? Rack and stack, do your research. There's lots of forums out there that will provide that information to you. I mean, just a Google search alone can kind of provide you with information about a company, whether they're good, bad, or whatever the case. But that's a very good point, because you do want to research. You want to make sure you're choosing the right vendors, the right people to work with, and vetting those people. Because at the end of the day, you're inviting them into your house. You're letting them. You're giving them the keys of the kingdom at some point, or in some regard. And if there's something wrong with them, that can easily, within the cyber world, go straight to you. So.
Yeah, and then, of course, there are entities like Darcy over at Del Mar at the Cyber Center who can help you with that too. And of course, BBB, where you can always vet, businesses and see what's going on that way. So that would be, no, we don't have something specific for cybersecurity, but you can just go to the website and do a simple search on any business and just kind of put in the business name. Yes, sir.
And some of those avenues might be InfraGard. I mean, I'm sure there's some the InfraGard chapter here, which is headquartered out of the FBI office in San Antonio, the field office in San Antonio. But coming in, becoming part of those groups and those organizations and coming together, every so often like we're doing right now, is a great way to get good feedback about things and processes and applications and other services people have used and had experiences with. And you're also going to get an opportunity to get like threat information too. But you're going to be, be in the know. And awareness is, that's a huge thing, is being aware.
Okay, and I think with that, we are going to wrap up this final panel. So thank you all for sticking with us on the cybersecurity panel. And thank you to our panelists.